Ready when everyone else is ready?
We're perfect. We're good to go.
Okay, so welcome everyone for joining us at this webinar today. We're going to talk through the XpoNorth Digital tender, a little bit around the tender requirement, and hopefully some good hints and tips for how to prepare your bid. So next slide. Ian is going to do the section about the tender requirements, and I'm going to do the majority of the slides, if I could get this going. So Ian is the head of creative industry, so he's the project manager for XpoNorth Digital, and myself, I'm the procurement manager who's looking after this tender. Today we're going to go through just very briefly about High and the Northern Innovation Hub program, and then Ian's going to talk a bit about the tender requirements, and then I'll take back over with the tender response, scoring methodology, and some generic info and advice regarding this tender. So Highlands and Islands Enterprise, you've probably all heard about this already. We're Scottish Government's Economic and Community Development Agency for the north and the west of Scotland. We've got quite a big area. We're covering more than half of the landmass of Scotland, and we're home to more than 400,000 people and 19,000 businesses. And as always, if you want to find out a bit more about us, then you just go onto our website, high.co.uk, and you can find various links to supports that we also provide, not just via the XpoNorth Digital program, but through our other support as well. High's vision is that we build a prosperous, inclusive and sustainable economy across the region so we can attract more people to live, work, study, invest and visit as well. And we're ambitious for all parts of the region to sustain and develop a vibrant rural economy. Our procurement strategy, for which you will have the link in this slide, has been updated last year in September, includes our mission statement, how we must process our procurements in an open, fair, inclusive and transparent manner, and how this all will contribute to our corporate social responsibility. Our key themes are the transition to net zero and community wealth building. You will see later on in our response form as well a question around the latter. The Northern Innovation Hub, which is where the XpoNorth Digital is delivered through, is a program that is designed to build on and accelerate business innovation. It's part of the Highlands City Region Deal project, which will mean that the program is to be delivered within the Highland Council area, as it's part funded by the UK government, Scottish government, the Highland Council High and the University of the Highlands and Islands. It's got some themes that around which we center all our support, and these are young people, growth sectors and place. And the Northern Innovation Hub aims to ensure that higher skilled and better paid jobs are created and sustained, and that we encourage young people to move to or stay in the region. Again, this will come up later on in the tender response form. The Northern Innovation Hub is supporting small and medium-sized enterprises so they can innovate, grow through the delivery of a number of targeted interventions, one of it being the XpoNorth Digital. And if you want to find out more, there's a link in this presentation slide. Now I'm going to let Ian to talk about the tender requirements. Ian, just shout next slide, please.
Sure. Well, the first thing just to mention is that Camilla had already explained that the programme is part of the Northern Innovation Hub. But High has actually added some additional budget to this to allow this digital work to be spread across the Highlands and Islands. So although the bulk of the money is coming from Northern Innovation Hub, and we would expect the bulk of the focus of the work will be on the Highland Council region, there is money there to allow the stuff to be delivered across the area, and we would certainly want to see that being the case. If you get the next slide, Camilla, please. Can we have the next slide, Camilla?
Oh, I thought I jumped. Sorry.
Right. So there's a couple of things that I really would like to highlight, and this is what really is important about the work and to keep in mind if you're putting in a bid. The first one is that the work really is around digital tools. It's around creative businesses and when we're talking about creative businesses, we do mean creative businesses. So we are talking about commercial activity here. We can take up cultural organizations and work with them, but our interest in this is where they have assets that can be commercialized. So it would be looking at how you can support them into commercial activity, stuff that will generate income. The other thing is, when I say a business, I do also mean that freelancers are included in this, sole traders, it's anything across the board. The only thing you're not likely to see is too many businesses that don't fit into the micro or the small business scale. We don't have that many large entities that are likely to come in. We can also, within the course of this, support other businesses who require the specialist creative skills that would be offered through the contract. So where you feel that creative industries can provide additional support, we would be willing to consider that business for support through this. But that's definitely not the core aim of it. I think one of the parts to mention really, though, is also around the crowd economy and how digital tools can be used to create a deeper engagement with the customer base. And I think a lot of it's around that, but where it's looking at how you can create new opportunities for R&D, how you can use that crowd to develop new products and services, to access finance and data, and also about the promotion that can be done that way. I should say the contract is not taking on the whole of the XpoNorth programme. This is one element of it, although we would ask that the supplier provides up to 7 panels for the XpoNorth conference, which is the conference that we hold annually in June each of the years. But it won't be taking on the entire role of XpoNorth. Next slide, Camilla. So the purpose behind this then: grow the sector, address skills gaps, retain young people. It's pretty straightforward. The next slide bullet point is probably more important in some ways, because we need this to be a fast and flexible service. We need to have the ability to respond to the requirements that businesses come in with, but also to respond to opportunities that arise. And one thing we have found that over the course of the work that we've been doing through XpoNorth Digital is that new opportunities, new partnerships, new ways of working occur, and we need whoever's delivering the service to be able to move with that and move. If something better comes up, a better way of doing something, we want to be able to pick up on it. The other part around flexibility is that while there may be some elements within the program that are set, so if you were doing a specific training course, then the elements of that are set, but largely the program is around delivering bespoke support to businesses. So it's really about the client saying what they need and looking for. So we're looking at, with that's on the one-to-one advisory services. Obviously, you would base the types of workshops, the webinars, things that would be delivered around what requirements we're seeing coming through. Another really important one for us on this is about facilitating access to networks. And what I would have to stress here is that we really need the access to be global. It needs to include international key decision makers so that we can get the cutting edge thinking, see what trends are happening, look at how business models are changing, the way that people are working. But also it's about ensuring that the businesses in the Highlands and Islands have access to the best people available, and also folk who can do something to help their business and who can potentially create work, offer them opportunities for sales on the spot should they choose to. So this really needs to include, as I said, a really high level of decision makers. And if one way to get an idea of the kind of people we've been engaging with in the past is to have a look at the XpoNorth website and look at the conference program. It gives you a feel for the kind of people. But to give you an idea of the kind of companies that we're talking about, it's people like YouTube, Google, TikTok, Netflix, Smartify, Sony, Verizon, all people that we have engaged with. But again, it's just to give you an indication. And we would be looking for those to be at an executive level so they can make decisions. I've already mentioned about the importance of the crowd economy to us. Storytelling, provenance, and immersive experiences clearly are really important to all businesses. The storytelling element is something that is increasingly going to be an important skill for businesses, and so we really see that as a key a part of what this program is going to be about. The next one is around creating projects that give direct access to the real world work, and I think I've actually mentioned this in the slide, so I'll explain that a bit further. The other thing is that we would expect a lot of the work to be delivered online. And so what we're really looking at is, can archive material be put up? Can we make timescales for things work to suit when people are best able to access them? There's a range of platforms can be used, but we also need to look at the fact that there are people who do have difficulties using some of the digital platforms that you may be using. There may be other challenges that they face due to neurodivergence or disabilities or whatever, and so we want to make sure that this program is as open and accessible as possible. So whether that's geographic or physical or any other kind of barrier that may be there to try and get this in. And the last one is that High has already established a good reputation for the lead that we've taken in the support of creative industries. And we really want to see that maintained and built on. And we do want to raise the profile of High as an organisation that supports the sector. Next slide, Camilla. So what do we need from you as the supplier? Obviously, we want that you're going to have a good understanding of the Highlands and Islands, of the kind of businesses that we have, how creative skills can be applied to other sectors. But the other part you're probably going to have is a good knowledge of the geography of the region as well, because well, for starters, the requirements in Argyll are going to be very different to what you're seeing in Shetland, for example. The geography is really different. The types of businesses are different. The linkages that those areas have with different places are different. So an understanding of the area would be useful. We also want direct experience of working in creative industries. One of the elements that's been most highly valued over the programs in the past is the fact that the suppliers and advisors have direct and demonstrable experience of working at a high level in creative industries. We would also want to see a demonstration that you do have this global key decision makers there that we can work with, and that you can access these people, and that we can have this functioning network of them. We would want to make sure that you do have experience in the crowd economy, about storytelling, provenance, patronage, or other platforms. But again, these things are pretty obvious, I would have thought, from what we've already said. And we would want you to have a good knowledge of the digital tools and platforms that are out there already, the companies that supply these services. Because I would say that for most people, the idea of creating a new platform is highly unlikely. Therefore, it's going to be about, I think, mainly will be taken up with using existing platforms, existing tools that are available, but how to use them more effectively. Next slide, Camilla. As I said, the majority of activity will be online. It doesn't mean it only has to be online, but that generally gives a better audience. It certainly makes it easier for people to attend, and easier to get industry engaged as delivering these webinars or whatever. The one thing we have found is that despite claims that audiences for online activity are dying down, we haven't found that to be the case. And if you have the right level of speaker and the right subject, you will get an audience for it. And we know that to be the case. Another thing I would highlight is that Business Gateway and a number of other organizations offer digital training. By and large, that's great, and it serves a specific market, but it's not really the market that we're looking at here. And what we don't want are basic digital marketing courses, social media courses. That's stuff that Business Gateway and others supply, and at that lower level of it certainly wouldn't be where we're looking. We're looking for something a bit more in depth, something for people that have a bit more experience, though I would stress not that they necessarily have a huge amount of experience, but we do want to drive this a bit further than what's being offered by the other agencies. For the workshops, and this is where I was coming into the direct work activity. Now, this is a course that was already done. So it's not about saying this is the course you should do, but it's just to give an example, is that the Sync Bootcamp was put on, which used the internal music team from Sky and suppliers for Netflix and other streaming services for where they're getting their music from. And it was set up an online training program for composers. And as a result of that work and being engaged with those, virtually everybody that was involved has had work or has work in the pipeline coming off the back of it. And that's the kind of, when I'm talking about this direct work opportunities, that's the kind of thing we're looking at. We also run through the main XpoNorth program, the tweet pitch, which allows authors to pitch to agents and publishers, and a panel of them that's been set up to check that. So again, it's resulting in direct work. So it's again about having a think about who are the contacts you can bring in, how can you make use of those, and actually allow ways for our businesses to access them. I've mentioned about catering for disabilities and things. The other two parts then, we would certainly want regular news updates. We need social media coverage. PR would be required. Again, it's not just to ensure the awareness among businesses, but it's also, to be honest, to make sure that Scottish Government, the other agencies, and that High knows how much is going on, because we do have to justify the service, and we want to obviously keep this going for as long as possible. So, we need to make sure that we're seen to be out and about and doing the work. And the final part is really about the reporting. And it's really, as you can imagine, working with any public sector agency, reporting is really important. And we will get pulled up on this if it's not at a level that's appropriate or acceptable. So what we're really saying is that when you're thinking about how you're going to keep data and keep the information, what I would say is think about it in the form of, we want to be able to trace the journey of clients, because we would anticipate that you may deal with a client for one webinar, two webinars, they may come in for the specialist advice, they may pick up on a training program. We would hope that you would have an ongoing engagement and that you would see the number of hours that they're participating in something with XpoNorth Digital growing as time goes on. Camilla, next slide.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. So back to the procurement elements, I'm just going to highlight some of the key dates in this tender process. The ones in red are the ones you'd really like to put in your diary so you don't forget about, but most importantly, the tender deadline, which is the 23rd of May, and that's at 12 o'clock. But also the deadline for questions, because you can use PCS to ask anonymously any questions related to the tender. So if you want something to be clarified, please don't make assumptions, just pop it through. We won't know who asked the question. And the deadline for that one is the 9th of May at 12 o'clock. So please maybe put those in your diaries. And as for all of our tenders, if you miss the deadline, unfortunately, we will not be able to accept your tender. So please watch the 23rd of May, 12 o'clock. Other than that, documents that you will have to submit, the single procurement document, you may or may not be familiar with it. It's a standard form, it's action online form now on Public Contract Scotland, so you can fill it out online. You don't need to put it in a Word document. It's got some information only sections, and it's got some pass-fail sections. Pass-fails mainly revolving around exclusion and selection criteria, the usual questions around criminal convictions and conflict of interest. And for this one, we have insurances as well, so please just double check you've got the right level of insurances, and if you don't, you can commit to obtain it should you be successful, because these are pass fail. If you can't answer yes, or you don't have all the insurances, or you can't answer accordingly, it doesn't always have to be a yes, then you will not be evaluated further. So please do this as the online form as part of your postbox response. The evaluation itself, so that of the quality criteria, we got weighting. So we got 40% weighting on price and 60% on quality, or together adding up for 100% value for money. And we broke down the specific questions as follows. We got a question on cybersecurity. That's a pass-fail question, and that's in a separate form. And in the main form, you got a question on management and delivery methodology. Got one on the team broken into two elements. So one is about your core individuals and the other one is about your additional resources. We got a question on added value, and we also got a question on community benefits. So they each got their own weightings. And as for the price, we'll be using the pricing pro forma, that's on PCS, complete it accordingly and submit it with your tender response. So these are the forms. So the SPD, sorry, is an online form, so that's on PCS. You got the response form, you can submit it as Word or PDF. You will need to submit your pricing pro forma. Please do it as an Excel spreadsheet, don't PDF it. Because separate form for the community benefits, because it's got drop-down menus in it, and it's always got an option for other, so you can always choose something else, because we can't come up with every community benefits that you could offer. Maybe stuff that we haven't thought about, but you did. And we got the response for cybersecurity. The main reason why this is separate is because that's going to be evaluated by a cybersecurity expert rather than our panel. Then we got a Fair Work Practices response form, which is an Excel form. This is a non-scored question. And we got the usual forms for signature. So if you could just print it, sign it, scan it back, or you can use electronic signature if you wish. And if you decide that you want to do a Freedom of Information Annex, there's no format for this. You could submit one, could be a Word document, a PDF. Guidance on this one is in the scope of requirements. So please just ensure that these number 1 to 8, 2 to 8 are returned as separate forms, and the SPD is completed online, and the pricing. Don't mention, please, any element of the pricing anywhere else other than in your pricing schedule. Just very generally about a better response form. So we got different questions, each of them covering a number of different areas, so they can help us understand how you will meet our requirements as we laid it out in the scope and in the questions. We got different weightings. The higher the weighting, we're obviously putting more emphasis on those questions so you can earn more scores. Every question will have a maximum page limit except for the community benefits response for that's in Excel. We do have a minimum number of community benefits we would like to see. As always, please start drafting your response as soon as possible so you have time to raise any questions if you're not sure about something. These questions are anonymous. The questions can relate to the scope of services, terms and conditions, page limits, anything. If it's anything to do with the PCS system, though, please phone PCS itself because that platform is run by them, not High. After the deadline, so that 9th of May deadline, we can't unfortunately accept any more questions. So please just remember that deadline. So as for the community benefits, I just wanted to mention a few things around this. So community benefits are contractual requirements that deliver a wider social benefit in addition to the core purposes of the contract. So these are sort of add-ons, if you like. No, not nice-haves, because they are contractual and you will be scored on it. So for this tender, we decided that it's proportionate and relevant, that these are getting evaluated. So if you fill out that form, you can choose anything you want from the drop-down menu. You can always use the other and add any explanatory word in. So we got different headings, different categories. And what we mandated is we want to see at least one community benefits that relates to the young person guarantee. So the two headings for these are either the recruitment and training or the educational one, where we would like you to offer something. So we're asking for a minimum of 6 community benefits in this response form. Spread across 3 headings, please. There is a document called Community Benefits and Fair Work Practices Guidance. So if you need any further detail in addition to the scope of requirements, you can just refer to that. And a key point for community benefits really is that anything that you identify, they must relate to this tender and for this contract. It's not something that you're already undertaking. It needs to have that link to our contract. Oops, sorry, I've jumped 2 slides. So just some examples of what sort of headings and themes we have. And again, feel free to use the other in the drop-down menu and offer us something completely different around those headings. So we're looking forward to at least 6 community benefits. Fair Work first, I would like to mention that although it's a non-scored question, we still need you to complete the Fair Work response form. because Fair Work is central to Scottish Government's priority for sustainable and inclusive growth, and especially as we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully coming out, and we're going into a period of economic recovery and renewal. Fair Work will be ever so important. So we got the headings around investment in the workforce, no inappropriate use of 0-hour contracts, and others that I've got on this slide. So please complete that worksheet as it's provided. Again, there's a bit where you can put in some free text. If you can think of anything else that we're not covered off in this headings, please feel free to mention those. So these will be, as well as the community benefits, will be monitored as part of contract management. So by the scoring methodology, so we got the first question around cybersecurity. This is a pass-fail. So you either pass along the criteria displayed on the slide just now, or you fail. So this will be evaluated by our independent cybersecurity experts. So if you fail this part, unfortunately, you will not be progressed further and you'll be excluded. So please ensure you return that form and complete every question. Then the rest of the quality questions will be using our usual 0 to 4 score with the descriptions as displayed on the slide. So 0 being unacceptable and 4 being excellent. We will have our own internal panel who score independently, and we'll be using average scores. So it'll form a single score. Everyone's going to give a score, and it'll be an average score, and then we apply the weighting. In the scope of requirement, there is a worked example if you're interested in how that actually works in practice. And just to highlight, we got 60% of the combined weightings for the quality criteria. So that's all your questions and the methodology, added value and benefits as displayed. And in order for you to be a pass, we set a minimum score of 35. So out of all that 60% of scores, you need to achieve a minimum of 35% out of the all the weighted scores. So hopefully that won't be an issue, but just to remember, please do pay extra attention to your response because you got this minimum threshold applied. The price is going to be done by the procurement team, the scoring of it. So we're just using the pricing pro forma with all the values that you popped in. All scores, and that goes for quality and price scores, they're calculated in Excel. So they're automatically rounded up or down to 1 decimal point. So your overall total may not 100% align. It may look like that. And as always, if you exceed the maximum stated budget, which is in the scope, then you'll be regarded as unacceptable and non-compliant, unfortunately. So just double check the budget to make sure that you stay within it. And by the budget, we mean the 2-year initial term, because it's a two-year contract with the option to extend for up to 2 years. So just double check the figures. And some tasks, some of the costs will be per requirement, some of them will be per annum. So just double check the instructions. You've got the various parts in the pricing pro forma. Just double check the notes. And as always, if something is unclear, just please raise the question via PCS and we'll help you out. I just want to highlight one part of the pricing pro forma, that is part E. It depends on your response to question 4 added value. You may or may not need to complete this part. So that is up to you depending on how you answered question 4. So if you're not proposing anything that would come with a price tag, then you can leave that blank. That's fine. And the last section is just very general hints and tips about tendering. A lot of it I know goes without saying, but always good to be reminded of these things, is that please make sure you read all the documents, that's including everything that was published, and always keep an eye on for the queries via PCS. So when someone asks a question and we post a response to it, you will get an automated notification from PCS, and you can always go into the Q&A tab of PCS and download all the questions that's been raised and answered, so you can keep on top of it to ensure that you take these into account when you're writing your bid. I mentioned before, it's helpful if you pop the deadlines for both the queries and the tender submission in your diary. So not just the deadline for the tenders, but also for the queries. And please do use the Q&A on PCS. Please don't email us. It's key that we do everything via PCS. it's there for audit trail, and also that it's done anonymously. And when you look at the response form, just go through each question, identify the key points, and start drafting your response. And always remember that every question is evaluated on its own right. So your response, say to question 1, please see question 2. That's not a good response. Please put your response into question 1, not just a referral. So, and whenever you can, obviously maximize the pages. They're maximum, they're not minimums, but use the space. And of course you can pop in pictures, graphs, however you want, as long as you stay within the page limit, that's all fine. Yeah, and just when you draft, then you can obviously keep an eye out for the page limits. It's always helpful to get someone else maybe to read through your response, see what they think, maybe a fresh pair of eyes, how well you answer the questions, how they would score it. And please be wary of cut and paste and tailor your response to these requirements and refer to highs. So, but I'm sure that goes without saying. And we can only award the scores based on what you have put on paper, what's in your proposal. We can't use any existing knowledge that we may have of you. So always bear that in mind, and then just expand on everything in that response form. So just respond fully to every question. And please allow plenty of time to upload your tender response on PCS, because any late bits will be excluded, and PCS can have its scores, your laptop can have its scores. Just please don't leave it to the last minute. And the SPD form being an online one, it's important again that you do it well on time, because if you have any issues, you will need to contact PCS, not ourselves. So just please don't leave anything for the last minute. And you will get feedback on your response if you obviously passed all the sort of pass fails to get to the evaluation rounds. And whether you win or not, we're hoping that will be useful feedback that would help you bid for the next time, either with High or with any other organisations. The slides, which I will upload to PCS shortly, has got various links where we can signpost you to either some help with supplier development program or the supplier journey, or any further information. So you can click on any of these links, and of course, if you've got any questions, just come to us via PCS. And if you do have any questions regarding the tender, we'd really like you to raise that via PCS and not just now at the end of this session, unless you've got one that is a burning desire. But it'd be good if you post it via PCS so we can take our time, we can respond, and it's going to be available to everyone. And other than that, that's it from me. So I'm going to stop sharing. Just
Perfect.
and I'll